Hi, I'm Mike. This week we went through the entire cow herd. We found out who was pregnant and which cows were going to have to leave the ranch and who gets to stay. Like most things, that raised even more questions. And today, we try to put some of those to rest as we take a look at why cows don't get pregnant and the fate of some of our friends right here on our Wyoming Life. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The cows are my friends. They are my coworkers. Some I get along with and some I don't. Some I can live without. And others, when they depart, they leave a hole in our lives. Those of you that have been watching will remember from our last video that Blonde Cow, one of our favorites here on the ranch, isn't pregnant this year. A cow that isn't pregnant is a drain on the finances of the ranch. It's like having a roommate who just doesn't do the dishes and never pays any rent. It may be your best friend, but eventually you have to make a decision about the fate of your living arrangements. Blonde Cow was on the ranch when we got here back in 2008. She lived on Gilbert's North Ranch back then, and although I noticed her, she was just another cow. I don't know when her birthday is. Best guess is that she was born in the spring of 2006. Now, the oldest cow ever to live was named Big Bertha. She passed away in 1993 at the age of 49 after having produced 39 calves. Blonde Cow is almost 14 years old, but for the first time after producing 12 calves herself, this year she's not pregnant. Blonde Cow didn't become one of my co-workers until 2012 after Gilbert passed away. It was then that we moved the 50 or so cows from the North Ranch down here to the ranch that we're working on now. She still was just another cow, and it wasn't until 5 years later, with the launch of our Wyoming Life, that Blonde Cow found her place on the ranch. But she found it in a way that very few cows do. Now, we have a lot of black cows on the ranch. Those are the pure black Angus cows. In fact, about 45 of them are registered black Angus. The other cows on the ranch have a mix of Hereford in them. That gives them the white on their face. And then, of course, there's the red Angus cows. We have a few mutts as well, those that we don't quite know their lineage, and Blonde Cow is one of those. And it's her coloring that gave her a leg up on the masses. She's always been pretty friendly. And when the cameras started coming out on the ranch, as our Wyoming Life became more and more popular, obviously cows were included in more and more videos and on social media. The problem was that black cows are hard to photograph or video. And even when you did, there was always a few cows that stood out for one reason or another. Bambi, one of our resident bottle calves that grew to be a productive part of the herd, pushed her way into many videos. But it was Blonde Cow that slowly snuck in until she was recognizable as anyone, earning her a spot on our banner for this year's Ranch Roundup and a place welcoming visitors to the ranch. But this is a business. Decisions have to be made, and sometimes those decisions are not easy. And unfortunately, a decision has to be made about Blonde Cow and her future on the ranch. The first question that we have to ask is, why didn't she get pregnant? We actually checked her twice about a month ago. Jamie from IMV Imaging stopped by to show us the ultrasound equipment that his company has released. And we had 3 cows ready to check. Bambi, who's pregnant with a little girl, due on May 10th. Number 2, a boy on the way, due April 27th. And Blonde Cow, who we weren't quite sure about.
I'm looking for is her horns. And I can see her horns just past the bladder. And all I'm seeing is arteries in the bladder. Not seeing anything in her.
Although it looked like she probably wasn't pregnant, older cows will sometimes have the calf slip into an area where you can't see with ultrasound. And we decided to check her again when we preg checked the rest of the herd. That day came and went, and the results were still the same. She's not pregnant. She is an older cow. Most cows in breeding herds are lucky to continue to be productive past 10 years old. In fact, according to Beef Magazine, the average age of most beef herds in the U.S. between the ages of 6 and 8 years old, with the average cull age, or the age when they're removed from the herd, being between 8 and 12 years of age. With the continuing decline of cattle prices in the U.S. and the high cost of replacing stock in beef cattle herds, many producers, such as ourselves, use pregnancy as a deciding factor in the decision to keep a cow or let her go. Of course, there are other factors, including the health of the cow herself, as she's lame or not holding her weight, or, well, that might be an indication of something deeper or more involved problem going on. While we look at cows to make sure they can get pregnant this year, another thing to look at is to see if they had a calf last year. And as you may know, we didn't get to preg check last year. But we can see who isn't pregnant this year, and it's not surprising to find out that over 75% of them didn't have a calf this year. Blonde cow, however, did have a calf this year, almost a clone of herself, who still lives on the ranch, only a few feet away. The other factor, of course, in breeding can be blamed on the side of the equation, well, the bull. But luckily, a majority of our bull herd is young at this point. 3 out of the 4 that finished the season are 4-year-old bulls. The other is 6, and they still all were doing their job. When we buy bulls at 2 years old, we have them semen tested before we buy them. And although we don't test them yearly, we only keep those that we know are working. And trust me, we do a lot of checking to make sure that they're doing their jobs. The number of bulls to the number of cows also makes a difference, and the traditional rule of thumb is 25 to 30 cows per bull for a normal 60-day breeding season. We have a bit longer breeding season at about 90 days, so in our herd, we started with 5 bulls, which only had to impregnate 1 cow every 3 days. That's not a bad job, is it? The other question comes up when we ask why a cow isn't pregnant is why we don't use artificial insemination. Now, we're not against it, we just haven't done it yet, and it may be in our future. Just because we don't use artificial insemination doesn't mean that we're missing out. According to the Canadian Beef Cattle Research Council, the average open rate in cows that are naturally serviced by bulls is about 9%. When we look at artificial insemination, that rate rises to 13%. And that's after 3 inseminations. Most people that AI or artificially inseminate still have to keep a bull around to service that 13%. Cost-wise, the Canadian Beef Cattle Research Council puts the cost of natural service at about $60 per pregnancy, whereas AI is likely to cost between $20 to $60 per cow, and that can be expected to be a bit more labor-intensive as well. Right now in our operation, the way it's set up, and our labor force, which is me, I'm happy to let the bulls do their job as long as they're doing it. As for me, I'm stuck doing my job, which at times really sucks. These 16 cows will be leaving the ranch. Those that have been open or not pregnant for the second year in a row, and the others that have medical issues or are just too old to put their bodies through another calf. Blonde cow, who is hiding back there, is in this group. And I really haven't talked to anybody else about this, but I'm gonna give her a second chance. Last year, she had a calf, but she did have that calf late in the season. Because she's getting older, she might not have cycled in time for the bulls to get to her. Or worst case scenario, she isn't able to get pregnant. Time will tell. Keeping her on the ranch may be good or may be bad. She may get pregnant again this summer and bring more life to the ranch, or she might be getting too old. She could hurt herself. She could have a number of other medical issues come up, including strokes or even seizures. But in the long run, you can't let her go yet. Not only is she lucky enough to be photogenic, she also reminds me every day that being the odd one of the group, it isn't a bad thing. Sometimes it's the thing that makes you special. Like they say, you have to be odd to be number one. So maybe keeping her is a bad move, from a business standpoint anyway. It costs money to keep her, to feed her, to keep her healthy. But I like looking out there and seeing her doing her thing. I'm just hoping that I'm making the right decision and not one that'll end up hurting us or her in the long run. Thanks for coming along today. One question I forgot to answer was if we saw any twins while we were preg checking, and I did not. In fact, I barely knew what I was looking for in the first place, so who knows. Have a great week, and thanks once again for joining us in our Wyoming Life.